I lost my new AirTag, and it ended up inside her purse. And the trail showed we didn't go together to the parent committee inauguration. It was the kind of morning you never expect to change your life. I remembered clipping the AirTag to my car keychain before leaving for work. I wanted to keep track of my car in the parking garage downtown. But when I reached into my pocket to grab my keys, only the keys were there. No AirTag. My heart sank, and I recalled it vibrating lightly when I attached it the night before. I figured I must have dropped it somewhere on the way to our apartment. I tapped the Find My app on my iPhone, watching the little dot blink on the map, tracing a path that led not to the parking garage, but to the Bloomfield Street parking lot at 3:30 in the morning. I blinked. Why was it there? I swiped through the app, but the AirTag's last recorded spot was no longer the garage. Now, it was inside Sarah's purse. My head spun. Sarah, my girlfriend of 2 years, had told me she was hosting a cookie baking event at the local library last night. She loves those weekend gatherings. She's always volunteering for some neighborhood fundraiser or school committee meeting. In fact, just last week, she insisted we attend the parent committee inauguration together. She had my full support in front of her colleagues. But that morning, the Life 360-like Find My timeline showed her phone co-located with my AirTag at a motel 60 miles out of town. I felt the floor drop out from under me. I threw on clothes, grabbed my car keys. Yes, they were with the AirTag now, but the location trail glitched, showing it moving again, and slammed out the door. The drive to the motel was a blur of red lights and tachycardia. I dialed the motel's front desk number as I entered the lobby, my palms sweaty on the steering wheel. The clerk's polite voice came through, asking for my reservation name, which I didn't have. I stammered. Do you have any record of a Sarah Matthews checking in around 3 this morning?" Silence. You could hear the rustle of papers as she checked the book, then a quiet click of the printer. "Yes, sir. I do see a Sarah Matthews registered for one night. Is there something I can help you with?" My voice shook. "Can you confirm if she checked out yet?" The clerk hesitated. "She hasn't checked out. She's still in the room." My heart raced. What was she doing? I tried to keep calm. "All right, thank you." I hung up, my jaw clenched with fury and fear. I should have parked and called a friend or even the police, but I couldn't. I needed to know exactly what was happening, and I needed to see it. I walked through the neon-lit hallway toward room 212, my footsteps echoing in the carpeted corridor. The numbers glowed faintly in the dim light. I knocked on the door softly, then more firmly, but no answer. I peered through the peephole. 2 figures were inside, moving too fast, shadows crossing the sheet. I felt bile rise in my throat. I forced myself to stay. This was evidence, and I was going to see it through. My thumb hovered over the doorknob. I didn't want to break in, but the weight of uncertainty pressed me forward. I fumbled my keys and realized my car keys. I hadn't thought about how to get the clerk to open the door, how to legally confront her. My mind raced for a plan. I backed out of the hallway as quietly as I could, my heart thundering against my chest. I needed to think. I found a bench in the lobby and sat down, my head in my hands. My phone lit up with a FaceTime call from Sarah's mother, Linda, asking if I'd seen Sarah that morning. I stared at her name, blinking. I couldn't answer. The phone inched toward my ear before I declined the call. I couldn't lie to her. She's a sweet woman, always inviting me to Sunday dinner, despite my lack of religious belief. "We're both Protestants," she often says. "It's not about religion, it's about family." I remembered sitting in their living room 2 months ago, watching her and Sarah paste photos into a scrapbook of Sarah's college years. They were so close. I couldn't be the one to tell her something had gone wrong. Instead, I swiped through my emails, trying to distract myself, but my eyes kept drifting to the Find My app. The pulsing dot was still there, marking that tiny lodge of infidelity. I pulled up Google and typed in motel room phone hacks and what to do if you suspect infidelity, a pitiful attempt to find guidance. Articles popped up, how to handle suspected cheating, signs your partner is being unfaithful. None of them helped. They all assumed you'd have time to process, to talk it out. I didn't have time, and deep down I knew there was no talk, only confrontation. I slipped out my AirTag and locked it to my old keys, the ones I stole from my parents when I moved in with Sarah. My breath hitched, remembering how we celebrated our move, toasting with red wine in our tiny kitchen, talking about our future, marriage, kids, that white picket fence life everyone dreams about. I remembered asking Sarah, if you could pick any date for our wedding, what would it be? She laughed. Summer. I want a garden, fairy lights, late sunsets. We're not even engaged yet, but I allowed myself to dream. Now those dreams felt like smoke slipping through my fingers. I decided to go back upstairs, to walk the hallway again, to maybe catch Sarah by surprise when she left the room. I felt like a detective in an old noir film, but worse, because I was the one being investigated, deceived. I climbed the stairs 2 at a time, my phone in hand with the Find My app open. It showed a refreshed location. Her purse had moved from inside the motel to a small diner across the street. The clock on my dashboard read 11:30. I pulled over, my headlights casting long shadows on the empty tables of the Blue Moon Diner. I watched the flickering sign advertising all-day breakfast as a storm cloud gathered overhead. The rain dripped from the letter M, forming sad rivulets of neon on the cracked asphalt. I stepped out, my shoes sinking slightly into the damp ground. The diner's windows were steamed with warmth inside. The low hum of conversation drifted out. I recognized Sarah's car parked off to the side. Her little silver Honda, with a faded bumper sticker from when we visited Martha's Vineyard last summer. I pressed closer to the glass, peering inside. She was sitting at a booth with a tall man I didn't know. Broad-shouldered, dark hair, suit jacket tossed over the back of the booth. They laughed as they shared coffee. Sarah's hand brushed his arm, a casual movement that made my blood run cold. She looked up, her eyes widening for a moment, as if she saw someone, but then she smiled and looked away, as though dismissing a fleeting shadow. I burst through the door, the chime jingling overhead. The diner went quiet for a second, all heads turning to look at me. Wet hair, trench coat clinging to my shoulders, eyes burning. The man stood abruptly, knocking his coffee over, and Sarah gasped. I marched over, all the courage and anger and heartbreak fuel burning in my chest. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice echoing in the small room. The man's suit was expensive. He didn't look worried. He folded his arms. "Mike," he said, studying me. "Long time." My chest tightened. The name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place his face in my memory through the haze of betrayal. Sarah stood behind him, stunned, glancing around as if she'd forgotten we were in public. "What did you think you were doing?" I turned to Sarah, pointing at her. "You lied to me. You said you were at the library until midnight. I know you left early." Her shoulders sagged. She hesitated. "Mike, please." I cut her off, voice harsh. "Save it. Who is he?" The man spoke up, voice calm, measured. "Cole Jennings. I work with Sarah at Miller & Cox Advertising. We were supposed to meet to go over a client presentation. I only just got here? She didn't tell you?" I stared, disbelief warring with relief and confusion. "You're saying this is all?" I gestured wildly between him and Sarah. Coffee sloshed onto their papers. "Just business?" Cole nodded slowly. "We met at the office at 3. She said she needed to go over something in person. I suggested the diner. I swear I had no idea you were tracking her." Sarah looked at me, tears pooling in her eyes. "Mike, I'm sorry. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I was sneaking around. I wanted to surprise you with a promotion at work and the trip Cole and I were planning to propose to my boss. I thought if I told you I was staying late at the office, you wouldn't worry." Her explanation tumbled out, mumbled, half coherent. "The motel? It was Cole's car that pulled into the lot when we were coming from the office. He said we'd need a quiet place to work. The library bake sale? I couldn't face telling you because my mom's group insisted I volunteer. I felt trapped in lies." My knuckles whitened as I grasped the booth's edge. I wanted to believe her, but the Find My trail was damning. 3:30 in the morning at Maverick Inn. Sarah's eyes flicked to Cole. He nodded, looking guilty, apologetic. He stepped forward. "Mike, I swear I didn't know it was after hours. We just needed a place with a printer and copy machine. The office was locked. We went to the windy lot outside town, then decided the Maverick was the only 24-hour place with Wi-Fi. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I know how it looks." I sank onto the opposite bench, the diner's vinyl seat sticky beneath me. My chest felt like it would collapse. Everything felt surreal. The neon lights refracted through the rain-soaked windows, reflecting in Sarah's trembling eyes. I felt a trickle of guilt for assuming the worst, but it mingled with the sting of betrayal, cutting deep. "You could have called," I said, voice barely a whisper. She flinched. "I know. I was scared. I thought if I explained, you'd think I was cheating. I never meant for it to go this far." She reached out, but I pulled away. "How am I supposed to trust you now?" My voice cracked. Cole cleared his throat, offering to leave us alone. Sarah nodded, and he slipped out with an apologetic glance. The door chimed behind him, and we were left in the quiet hum of half-eaten pies and steamy windows. She sat down slowly, leaning forward, hands clasped. "Mike, please believe me. I love you. I didn't cheat. If you saw someone else, I swear to God, I didn't." I stared at her, trying to parse the truth in her gaze. The motel's security footage crossed my mind. Maybe I should have gone inside, seen the evidence myself. But then again, maybe she was telling the truth. My chest tightened. Doubt clawed at my mind. "Then why didn't you tell me? Why let me chase ghosts?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Because I don't want you to think less of me. I know I should have trusted you." I looked away, heart aching. The diner lights flickered as the power surged from the storm outside. I listened to the rain pounding on the roof, drowning out the quiet sobs of a woman begging for forgiveness. After what felt like hours, I stood up, feeling hollow. "I need time, Sarah. I need to figure out what's real." She nodded, too broken to speak. I left a $20 bill on the table and walked out into the storm. The rain lashed at me, drenching my coat. I got in my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, and started the engine. I didn't know what to do next, whether to go back to our apartment, pack a bag, or call my best friend for emergency advice. Driving home felt like the end of something I'd spent years building. Memories flashed by. Our first date at that Italian restaurant downtown, her teaching me to bake chocolate chip cookies on a Sunday morning, the way she'd squeeze my hand whenever she felt nervous. I couldn't reconcile the woman I loved with the possibility that she had betrayed me, or that I had trapped her in a web of suspicion. By the time I reached our neighborhood, the storm had passed, leaving the streets slick and gleaming under the street lamps. I parked in front of our building, sat for a moment, then unlocked the door. Everything felt unchanged. The same painting of a sunset in our hallway, the scent of vanilla from the candle on the coffee table. I dropped my keys on the hook and collapsed onto the couch. My phone buzzed with messages from Sarah. "Please call me. Let me explain. I'm so sorry." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened the Find My app again, staring at the last known location of the AirTag. I needed closure. I tapped on the map, zooming in on the pin at the motel, and then on the series of blurred footprints leading out of room 212. I felt a surge of anger at myself for letting technology lead me into darkness. But then I felt empathy for Sarah. Maybe she did need that motel for work. Tomorrow, I would demand to see the footage, to verify what happened behind that door. I drifted into a restless sleep, the images of Sarah and Cole in the diner haunting my dreams. I swore to myself that I'd get to the bottom of it. Either discover the truth about her fidelity or find a way to trust her again. Because if she hadn't cheated, if her tears were honest, then I needed to atone for my lack of faith. And if she had cheated, well, I needed to face that reality head-on, no matter how painful. I stare now at the empty coffee mugs on the kitchen counter, still warm from coffee poured in the early hours, wondering what tomorrow might bring. The next morning, I woke with sunlight slanting through the blinds and my phone buzzing insistently on the bedside table. My head ached from a night spent staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the diner confrontation over and over. I eyed the clock. 7:15 a.m. My thumb hovered over Sarah's name in my recent calls before I slid it away. Instead, I dialed the Maverick Inn's front desk. I'd slept on the idea of getting that footage. Maybe it would confirm her story, or shatter any doubt once and for all. The clerk answered on the second ring, her voice groggy. "Good morning, Maverick Inn." I cleared my throat. "Hi, this is Mike Matthews. I called last night about footage from room 212, May 30th between 3 and 4 a.m. I'd like to view or get a copy of it, please." There was a pause. "You're the person who wanted info on Sarah Matthews?" I swallowed. "Yes, I need to see what happened." The clerk hesitated. I'm not sure we can just hand that over. I'll check with management. 1 minute passed, then she said, "Okay, Mr. Matthews, someone from security will meet you at the lobby in 20 minutes. Bring valid ID. You can watch the footage on our monitor, but you can't remove any digital copies." "Thank you," I replied, my pulse accelerating. I hung up and stared at the wall. 20 minutes to decide what I'd do once I saw her on that screen. I felt sick. I showered quickly, splashed cold water on my face, and dressed in jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. Before leaving, I grabbed my AirTag and locked it again to my car keys. An unconscious act of reclaiming control. I told myself, see the footage, then decide. No matter what, I needed the truth. At 8:30 a.m., I parked in the motel's lot, rain from the previous night still collecting in puddles that reflected neon twilight. The lobby smelled of stale coffee and bleach. I signed in with my ID, and security led me through a short hallway to a small office with a widescreen monitor. The technician, a tall guy in a blue polo, plugged in a USB drive and clicked a few buttons. The screen flickered, then showed a grainy, black and white image of room 212's corridor outside the door. I watched the timestamp, 3:12 a.m. A figure emerged from the door, Sarah. She wore the same burgundy sweater I'd seen in the diner. In her hand, she held a laptop bag. She walked carefully, glanced down the hallway, as if checking for prying eyes. Then a second figure, a man in a dark jacket, stepped out behind her, his face blurred by the low resolution. They lingered at the end of the hallway, then disappeared from view as the camera panned inside the room. The feed switched to the entryway camera inside room 212. The door swung open at 3:13 a.m., and there was Sarah stepping into the room. The man followed closely. The door closed behind them. The screen shifted. Another angle from the opposite corner captured them sitting at the makeshift desk, both hunched over a stack of papers. Their heads moved closer, discussing something. Work, probably, if I was willing to believe her story. The images blurred for several minutes. The camera auto-switched to the hallway view while the maid's cleanup time intervened. After a brief gap, the view shifted again to the desk area at 3:45 a.m. I leaned forward. Sarah and the man were standing now. She clutched a stack of documents, and he handed her a pen. They exchanged a quick kiss, light, almost perfunctory, then broke apart. My chest tightened. The technician noticed me leaning in. "Everything okay?" I let out a breath I'd been holding. "I didn't expect to see that." He nodded sympathetically. "Take your time." The last shot showed Sarah slipping the papers and laptop into her bag, straightening her hair, and tucking the collar of her sweater, those final gestures I'd seen reflected in the diner booth. At 3:52 a.m., the two moved to the door. The camera cut out as they exited toward the parking lot. I sat back. The footage had answered my question. Yes, they shared a brief kiss, but was it purely professional stress relief, as she'd claimed? Seeing those two bodies pressed together, heat rising off their skin, I felt anger and humiliation coil inside me like a rattlesnake. My mind reeled. Was it nothing, meant to be corporate camaraderie, or a preamble to something more? The technician snapped off the monitor. "Anything else?" I shook my head. "No, thanks." I followed him back to the lobby, my heart pounding louder with each step. He nodded, and I retrieved my ID. Outside, a police cruiser idled by the neon sign. The sight jolted me. I wondered if I should call them or just drive home and confront Sarah face to face. I chose the latter. By 9:30 a.m., I pulled into our driveway. The front porch light was on, indicating someone was home. I slipped inside. The apartment was the same cluttered haven of mismatched throw pillows and the lingering aroma of vanilla cinnamon candles, but everything felt charged, electric. I found Sarah in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a steaming mug of coffee. Her hair was loose, framing her face in soft curls. When she saw me, her shoulders sagged. "Mike, you're back early." I stood in the doorway, my chest tight. She set her mug down and wiped her hands on a dish towel. "Honey, My voice caught. I held up my phone. I saw the footage, the hotel, you and Cole at 3:13 a.m. Her eyes filled again. "I'm sorry, it looked bad, but I swear I never meant to hurt you." I ran a hand through my hair, feeling vomit rise in my throat. "Explain." My tone was harsher than I meant. She flinched, taking a hesitant step toward me. Cole and we were working on a crush campaign for Kavanaugh Properties. The client needed those layouts by sunrise. There was no one else on call at that hour. He offered to share his space. I was stressed and I didn't think it'd be a problem. She let out a shaky breath. We worked in silence for a while. Then he told me something personal. He just found out his wife was leaving him. I tried to console him. He was upset. He kissed me. I didn't push him away fast enough. I tried to stop it. I walked out immediately, heart racing, and came home. Her words tumbled out. I'm sorry. I panicked and didn't know how to tell you. The library bake sale required checking in with the committee until 10. I wanted to surprise you with a client win, but everything snowballed, and I made a mistake. It wasn't planned, Mike. I never meant to betray you. I stared at her, torn between pity and rage. So you're saying it was a one-time thing? Because he was upset? That you tried to stop him? She nodded, voice breaking. Yes, it wasn't passion. It was guilt and his vulnerability. I left as soon as I could. I swear I came straight home. I closed my eyes, picturing the footage again. The brief kiss, the slight hesitation in Sarah's eyes as she turned away. Was it enough? Was it cheating, even if she hadn't welcomed it? I dropped onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. She knelt in front of me. Please, Mike. I love you. I want to make this right. I looked up, seeing tears streaking down her cheeks. My heart ached. To believe her was to risk looking naive, but to doubt her was to accept that she'd given herself to another man. I exhaled slowly. I need time, Sarah. I need to think about what this means. Her shoulders crumpled. I understand. She reached out, touched my hand. I didn't pull away. Instead, I let her hold me there on the couch, her tears soaking into my sleeve. I wondered how we'd come to this, the trust shattered by a single moment of misplaced compassion. For hours we sat together in tense silence, the afternoon sun inching across the hardwood floor. We didn't speak, but the weight in the room was a conversation of its own. My disappointment, her remorse, the fragility of what we had. At 5 o'clock I stood. I need a walk. She watched me, nodding, understanding that space was all I could offer right now. I grabbed my keys, AirTag still secured to them, and left. The neighborhood felt surreal. Kids stretched ropes for jump ropes, lawnmowers droned down the street, neighbors waved cheerily, oblivious to the rupture in my heart. I drove aimlessly to the riverfront park, where we used to picnic on lazy Sundays. I parked under a willow tree, the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze reminding me of peaceful times now overshadowed by doubt. My phone buzzed with a text from Cole. Mike, I'm so sorry, man. This isn't how I wanted things to go. I stared at his name, fingers hovering over the screen. My hands shook. I didn't know what to reply. The truth was, I was torn between hating him for taking advantage of Sarah's kindness and feeling guilty for intruding on their professional grief. They weren't strangers thrown together by desire. They were colleagues trying to meet a deadline. But the kiss? The line had been crossed. Whether I could forgive it, that remained to be seen. I pocketed my phone and watched the river flow. I thought about Sarah's tears, the way she'd clutched her mug that morning like it was an anchor. I thought about our future, how I'd fantasized about proposing under fireworks next 4th of July. Now, even that vision felt tainted. Night began to fall. I stayed until the streetlights flickered on, then drove home. The apartment was dark, except for a single lamp by the couch. Sarah sat there watching for me, her eyes red-rimmed. I walked in, motioning for her to stay seated. I sat across from her. I've been thinking, I began quietly. She nodded, arms crossed around her waist. I took a deep breath. I'm not ready to forgive, not right now. But I believe you didn't mean to betray me fully. What you did hurts, but I also know you're not that kind of person. I need trust rebuilt, and that means time. No secrets, full transparency. We need to go to couples therapy. If you'll commit to that, I'll try to work through this with you. But if you can't handle that, maybe we should take a break. I don't know how this ends. Sarah's shoulders trembled. I'll do anything, Mike. Anything. I love you. I'll go to therapy, change my phone passwords, whatever you need. Just don't leave me. I saw her sincerity. How she flinched at her own confession of guilt. How she was willing to strip away her privacy to rebuild what we lost. I exhaled, the tension in my chest easing just a touch. Then we'll try. I'll schedule appointments tomorrow. She nodded, tears spilling over. I reached for her hand cautiously, and she took it. As the city lights flickered outside, we sat in that fragile silence, two broken people trying to find a way back to each other. Because even when trust is fractured, sometimes love is worth fighting for. And maybe, with effort, forgiveness can piece us back together.